Shabbat Shalom, everybody. I want to wish a Mazel Tov on the anniversary to Rebecca and Ryan Wallach. I want to wish a happy birthday to Harriet Friedman, Carol Frank, Max Friedman, Arnie Fisher, Alan Levinson, Marlene Bratt, Jerry Katzman, and Leslie Rosenbaum. Happy birthday. I want to thank our daveners this morning. We had Mark Sussman, Rabbi Pachter, Jack Light, Jeff Kirsch. We'll be finishing off our Torah reader and our Haftorah reader, the one and only Steve Rabinovitz, our floor captain Larry Gunsberg, our Bima Gavai, Gordy Veras, our digital Gavais, Mark Bettman and Hannah Carroll. Thank you, everybody, for making Shabbat. So before we dive in, you can even take that down for a minute, and then we'll dive into a little text study. But I want you to think for a minute. How many different identities, or you could say parts of your identity, do you have? This is not a facetious question about multiple personality disorders, and I'm not implying that any of us are secret agents with multiple passports at home used to fly to nefarious countries. I'm asking right now in your life, how many different identities or parts of your identity do you carry? Just think to yourself. Parent, grandparent, spouse, friend, different identities or parts of your identity. And over the span of your life, how many different identities have you had? Child, teen, young adult, your professional identity. The reason I call them identities is that we don't act the same when we're in different situations or stages of our lives. We all change as we mature. We also change from who we are, or at least how we act when we're in different situations. When you're at home, you act one way, and when you're in public or at your job, you act a different way. Take, for example, have you ever met someone in one setting and then in a totally unrelated setting run into the person? Like children, when they see a teacher at the grocery store or the rabbi or something out of context, and they say, "You go shopping here?" Well, yeah, I have to get groceries, right? But different identities, you relate to people on different levels, and you often don't even think of them in the same way. But the reality is that we move through our lives, we develop any number of different identities that we carry with us. Some of them we cherish and hold on to, and some of them we're not so proud of. But the reality is that we're all the same DNA throughout. In this week's parsha, we have something that Rabbi David Kasher refers to as the economy of characters. This is when rabbis of the Midrash are confronted with two figures in the Torah who play similar roles, and they simply fold them into one. He brings two types of places where this happens, Rabbi Kasher. He says the first is when you have an unnamed character whom the rabbis attribute a name based on some other character where that name is given to a similar character. So if you look on the front of your text sheet, it says version 1, the unnamed character. This was in last week's portion. And it says, sometime later, the word of Adonai came to Abraham in a vision, and it said, "Fear not, Abram, I am a shield to you. Your reward shall be very great." But Abram said, "O Lord Adonai, what can you give me, seeing that I shall die childless, and the one in charge of my household is Damesk Eliezer." Now here, Abraham's servant is named. Do you want a copy, Alan? Okay. Here, the name of the servant is named Damesk Eliezer. Well, in this week's Torah portion, it says, "And Abraham said to the senior servant of his household, who had charge of all he owned, put your hand under my thigh and make and I will make you swear by the Lord, the God of heaven, the God of earth, that you will not take a wife, etc., etc., etc. Now, if you ask any kid that goes to Sunday school and learns the weekly Torah portion, and you ask, what was the name of the servant who Abraham sent to go find a wife, what would everybody say often that you're taught? Eliezer. Does it say that it's Eliezer anywhere in that text? No. So the rabbis take two characters, the servant named Eliezer and the servant unnamed, and pushes them together and says, it's just one servant. It's the same person. Another place where we could see that down a little below here is Israel or Jacob said to Joseph, your brothers are pasturing at Shechem. Come, I'll send you to them. He answered, I'm ready to go. Joseph goes out. When he reached Shechem, he came upon a man wandering in the fields. The man asked him, what are you looking for? He answered, I'm looking for my brothers. Can you tell me where they're pasturing? The man, Vehaish, the word in Hebrew, Vehaish, said, they've gone from here and they're over there. Now, the Midrash relates this to a verse in the book of Daniel that says, Vehaish, and the man. And there, the man was actually the angel Gabriel. So what do the rabbis do? The man in the Joseph story was Gabriel the angel. It's just another example. Now it gets a little more complicated because there are times when very simply we're going to take two characters with two different names and claim they're the same. And I think that this is very powerful. Abraham, at the very end of this week's Torah portion, it says, and Abraham took another wife, and her name was Keturah. Now, is this the same wife he had before according to what the Torah says? No, it says another wife. Bereshit Rabbah, one of the collections of midrashim, of rabbinic sayings, has a quote from the sage Rav, who says, this is Hagar. Excuse me, what? Where could Rav possibly come up with, this is Hagar? Where could you come up with such an idea? Especially, and by the way, I didn't give you the rest of the midrash, but the other rabbis come back at him and they say, excuse me, it says another wife. And he says, yes, but it's Hagar. This is another wife from another place. Yes, but this is Hagar. Hagar died and they sent Hagar away. Yes, but this is Hagar. It goes back and forth, but where does it come up with? So let's look again back to last week's Torah portion. And it said, the messenger of God said to Hagar, this is in the desert, behold, you are pregnant. This is after Sarah sent her away, sent her off into the desert. You shall bear a son, you shall call him Yishmael, for the Lord has paid heed to your suffering. He'll be a wild ass of a person, his hand against everyone, everyone's hand against him, onward and onward, until the last line, it will say, and she called to Adonai, who spoke to her, you are El Roi, by which she meant, have I not gone on seeing after my being seen? In other words, God has seen me, El Roi, the God of seeing, and she was by a well, and therefore she called the well Be'er Lechai Roi. Be'er Lechai Roi. That is the place where Hagar heard the message of that she was pregnant, etc. Now, in this week's Torah portion, what happens? The servant, who we've now identified as Eliezer, goes off to find Rebekah. Rebekah and her maids arose, mounted the camels, and followed the man. This is after she's decided, okay, she's going to head back and marry Isaac. So the servant took Rebekah and went his way. Isaac had just come from Be'er Lechai Roi, the exact same place. For he was settled in the region of the Negev. He had gone to Be'er Lechai Roi and he was walking back. And Isaac went out walking in the field. He saw the camels approaching. We know that they get married. Now, what was he doing in Be'er Lahai Roi? Why was Abraham over in that place over there in Be'er Lahai Roi? And why is it so important that we name the place? Remember, there's no wasted words. So somebody tell me. Rashi tells us. And he brings, of course, Genesis Bereshit Rabbah. He brings another piece of the Midrash. Oh, Isaac, despite being estranged from his father after almost being sacrificed on the mountain, cared deeply for his father. And his mother had died, and his father was alone. And he said, it's not good for anyone to be alone. My father has sent off to find me a wife. And now I need to care for my father. I need to make amends with him, and I need to make sure that he's taken care of and that he has companionship. And he went, according to the Midrash, to go to Be'er Lahai Roi to bring Hagar back to marry his father. He had gone there to bring Hagar back to Abraham that he might take her again as his wife. Abraham was alone. Sarah died, and Isaac said, my father had a beautiful relationship with this woman named Hagar. My mother, to protect me, sent her off, but that doesn't preclude their relationship. Now, the Torah says that he married Keturah, but the Midrash tells us very clearly that Keturah, because of the naming of the place Be'er Lahai Roi, that was the sign that it was the same woman. Now, the final piece. And Abraham breathed his last dying at a good ripe age, old and content. And he was gathered to his kin. His sons Isaac and Ishmael buried him in the cave of Machpelah in the field of Ephron, the son of Zohar, the Hittite, facing Mamre, the field that Abraham had bought from the Hittites. There Abraham was buried, and Sarah his wife. Now wait a second. According to what we know, there wasn't necessarily the best relationship between Ishmael and Yitzchak. They hadn't seen each other in years, or so we think. There's no mention. And all of a sudden, here they are standing together. And they bury him together. And what is the immediate next thing we read? After the death of Abraham, God blessed his son Isaac. And where does Isaac settle? Be'er Lahai Roi. My friends, we're heading into Thanksgiving weekend, a time where families gather together. Some of us will be with the same people we see every week if you're blessed to have your family here in the immediate Metro Detroit area. And some of us may be seeing family or friends we haven't seen in a long time. My blessing to us is to recognize that people's identities change. We grow up, we mature, and we age. Like fine wine, don't forget, we age, we become better. My blessing is that we all see our friends and relatives as a fine bottle of wine, getting more mature and refined and enjoyable at each passing season. May we understand that the color of hair may change, and even their names may change. But if we focus on just the edges that were once rough, we'll miss what's been smoothed over, what's been refined. We'll miss seeing the spark of the divine in each person. So let us see the smoothed edges. Let us see the refinement. Let us see the spark of God in each of us. And may we be accepting of ourselves as each of our own identities continues to evolve as the years pass by. Shabbat Shalom and a happy, healthy Thanksgiving.